cats and kittens, and thanks for tuning in to another episode of The MonkeyBoy Presents the DC Comics Superhero Collection by Eaglemoss, and today I'm happy to bring you issue number 66, Black Lightning. And this is another great character in the line, another one I'm very happy to have. Not necessarily one of my favorite characters, but one that I did grow up with watching the Super Friends cartoon show. And if you've watched these reviews, I'm sure you've heard me mention the Super Friends a number of times, but that was my first exposure to DC Comics, honestly, was that old cartoon show. So that's why I really like these characters. I'm happy to grow the Super Friends ranks with the likes of, Martian Manhunter and Green Arrow and Firestorm, Red Tornado, some of those guys. And Black Lightning here sort of applies. He kind of sort of appeared on the Super Friends cartoon show as a character known as Black Vulcan. Same basic character, same power set, but Hanna-Barbera didn't want to pay the royalties to use the real Black Lightning, so they created their own character and called him Black Vulcan. Essentially the same, but that's where I first learned of this guy, and I just always assumed it was the same character. Silly me. He's also sort of appeared on the Justice League Unlimited animated series. Again, they didn't want to pay the rights, there was all sorts of craziness involved, and he was a character known as Juice on that show, but he was a definite homage to Black Vulcan and Black Lightning. Black Lightning did eventually appear on television, though, in the Batman the Brave and the Bold animated series, where we saw him evolve on that. He had a few different costumes, and he grew as a character. It was kind of nice to finally see him actually portrayed on a cartoon show, although he has appeared in some of the animated movies and that sort of thing. But anyway, we'll take a look first at the magazine, which will tell us everything we need to know about the hero known as Black Lightning, also known as Jefferson Pierce, and then we'll look at the figure itself, covering the good, the bad, and the ugly. It's another really nice figure, as I said before. Very happy to bring it to you. Sit back, relax, please enjoy issue number 66 of the DC Comics Superhero Collection by Eaglemoss, Black Lightning. First up, the character section. This is where we meet Jefferson Pierce, who grew up in the south side of Metropolis in a neighborhood that was dubbed Suicide Slum. We also meet Alvin, Jefferson's father, who was trying to clean up the neighborhood by taking on the corrupt mayor of the city, a man named Tobias Whale. Devastated at the loss of his father, Jefferson poured himself into his studies and also into track and field. When Jefferson returned to Suicide Slum 10 years later to take over as principal at the local high school, he found that the corrupt mayor Tobias Whale and crooked property owner Victor Swan were ruling the city like a kingdom.
Come on, hit me.
After the attack on the high school and the loss of one of his students, Jefferson turned to longtime family friend and local tailor, Peter Gamby, for help.
I want you to hit me as hard as you can.
Unfortunately, Peter Gamby was killed protecting Jefferson's family from members of the 100. After saving the slum from Swan Whale in the 100, Black Lightning encountered one of his first setbacks in his superhero career when a bystander was actually killed in the crossfire as he was foiling a robbery. All the while, Jefferson continued to be an educator and eventually became Secretary of Education when it was offered to him by newly elected President Lex Luthor. The magazine also talks a little bit more about his daughters, beginning with his eldest daughter, Anissa, also known as Thunder. We also learned Jefferson was asked to resign as Secretary of Education after Lex Luthor had been impeached and imprisoned, and also because he was being implicated in a murder investigation. Nightwing and the Outsiders learned from underworld sources that it was Deathstroke the Terminator who had committed the murder. After clearing his name, Black Lightning was welcomed back into the superheroing community and was made team leader of Batman's Outsiders. Next, we look at a couple of Black Lightning's classic stories. First up, we have Black Lightning, Year 1. And this is exactly what the title implies. This is the origin story of Black Lightning. We see Jefferson Pierce's life from when he loses his dad at 9 years old, to his Olympic career, to becoming a principal at the local high school and helping to clean up Suicide Slum as the hero Black Lightning. It's a beautifully illustrated tale, a heartfelt story, and it shows how one man with enough determination can actually make a big difference. We also have Outsiders, The Deep. This story picks up after Batman has supposedly been killed in action by the evil Darkseid, and we find him leaving instructions with Alfred Pennyworth to put together a new team of Outsiders, and that includes Black Lightning, who he has selected to be the new team leader. Ultimately, this Black Ops team that calls themselves the Outsiders has to race against the clock to save the Earth from destruction at the hands of immortal beings who call themselves the Insiders. It's action-packed and beautifully illustrated. Next, we have some of Black Lightning's friends and foes, featuring, of course, Batman and the Outsiders, and his daughters, Thunder and Lightning. Finally, the iconography section talks a little bit more about the man behind the mask. We learn more about Jefferson's time as a teacher and an educator, as well as when he served as Secretary of Education under then-President Lex Luthor, and how Jefferson feels that the best way to bring hope to America's inner cities is through education. It also talks more about his early career as Black Lightning when he was taking on Swan Whale and the 100. It talks more about the time he served in Iron Heights prison when he was wrongfully accused of murder. Finally, it talks about how he has risen above every challenge and adversity placed in his life to become one of the greatest heroes in the DC Universe. And here we have Black Lightning, also known as Jefferson Pierce, and I think, personally, this is another really nice figure. Not great, but really, really nice. And it's not necessarily the figure's fault. It's just the design of the character. Like most of the heroes, he's pretty simplistic by design. However, I really do like this version of the character, and I like this version in the statue. It's perfectly pulled off here. It looks exactly as it should. Love the lightning bolts all over the costume. Everything on him is hand-painted, which is really, really nice. Love that blue on the costume as well. It's perfectly done. Love the wash that's on it so you can see it makes all of his musculature really stand out nicely. It's not just this flat blue all the way throughout. That shading really helps everything kind of pop. You can see the gloves also are a really nice glossy black as opposed to the flat black that the rest of the costume has. Same thing goes for the boots. The boots, you can really see the contrast between the glossy and the flat black in the costume. And I like his goggles too. I love the mask, or goggles. I think they're goggles, like sunglasses to protect his eyes from the electricity. But yeah, I really like the guy. I'm very happy with him. I used to love Black Vulcan on the Super Friends, and while I know it's not technically the same character, in my head it basically is, and I was always a big Super Friends fan, so I'm happy to have this guy in the collection. And I'll talk a little bit more about him here in just a moment. Black Lightning stands atop the classic DC logo, and the underside of the base features his name in a couple languages along with serial number. And just so you can compare him next to some other figures, here he is with the evil Deathstroke the Terminator. A group shot with the rest of the Outsiders Eaglemoss has produced so far. And one last big group shot of the Justice League of America. So Black Lightning is another really, really nice character. He's not outstanding, he's not great, he's good, he's very good. Most of that has to do with the fact that it's just a simple character by design. The figure is a very faithful interpretation of Black Lightning, though. And we'll start, as always, with the good. Pretty much everything on this guy, to be honest with you. I really like the pose. I think it's dynamic. I think it's classic. He has struck this pose in the comic books before. I like the version of the costume. I have a couple issues with it, but overall I really do like it. I like the paint scheme, very clean edges, love the application, love the glossiness of the boots and the gloves, and that nice flat black for the rest of the outfit where there's black anyway. It's really, really nice. It's a great contrast. It breaks it up a little bit instead of just having it flat all the way through. I really like the costume on the upper body, though. It's really well done. Great sculpting, especially his musculature. And I love all the lightning bolts all over him. That belt and the bolts on his chest, really nice, all the way around him. Hand-painted through and through, not a sticker on him, which is absolutely fantastic in my opinion. Again, the hands are really nice too. Both of them have sculpted digits. Not every finger is done, but certain fingers are done, which I find pretty impressive. The hand that's down by his side has a couple of fingers sort of unwinding as though he's, maybe getting ready to charge up some energy or something, and then the finger pointing out at you is also a very nice touch. It's like he's telling you to stop in your tracks or something like that, or he's maybe aiming or something. It's just a really cool pose. It's interesting. I kind of dig it. And the head sculpt, really, really nice. Love the flesh tone on him. It's a great skin tone. Love his facial expression. Love the bald head. I'm glad they went with the bald head. I think it's a really cool look for him. And I love the furrowed brow. The goggles that he wears are really well done. He has that bright yellow eyepieces with the black edge of the mask around it. It's a great, great head sculpt, and it looks perfect. The bad, there's not a whole lot, to be honest with you. I do have a couple criticisms. There's some minor paint bleeding on him, but I always usually excuse that unless it's extreme because it just shows it's handcrafted. The goggles on his face could have had a little bit more black around the edges. It could have been a little bit of a thicker mask, but that's just a minor criticism. My biggest criticism of the figure is that this pose from the comic books usually has that hand that's down by his side charging with energy, and I wish that they had maybe done something to get that across here, either with the paint or with something like an energy pulse sculpted to his hand or something. I think that would have made it just a little bit cooler, but as I said, it's a minor little criticism. the ugly. There's not a whole lot on this guy that's ugly. The only thing, and I'm sure you've already guessed it, would be the finger that he is pointing out at you. That's going to be the most vulnerable spot on the figure. Really thin, so easy to bend, easy to break. The fingers, on his other hand, you might want to check if you have the ability to, just to make sure they're not too gnarled or anything. But that's really it. Overall, I really am happy with this guy. I like Black Lightning, I like Black Vulcan, and I just think he's a great figure to have on the shelf. He's dynamic looking, it's nice to have another black hero on the shelf, nice to have another outsider as well. I really dig the outsider characters. Any member of a Batman team is okay by me, and it's always wonderful to swell the ranks of the Justice League. So yeah, I recommend him if you're a fan of the Justice League or a fan of the Super Friends and you want to have those characters, because in my mind he's Black Vulcan too. Good, but not great, but very good. I do like him a lot, and I hope you guys have enjoyed this review of Black Lightning. Please stay tuned for a quick teaser trailer of the next figure in the line. It's a pretty obscure one, I think. Not too many people are going to know who this guy is. It's our very first Legion of Superheroes character. So if you know the Legion of Superheroes, you probably know this guy. He's their leader, and he's pretty interesting. So stay tuned. As always, I am your host, the Monkey Boy, aka Jay to his friends. Thanks for watching.